A big win this past week for Republicans on Capitol Hill, the House passing a pair of bills making good on President Trump's illegal immigration crackdown. The first measure, designed to deny federal money to so-called sanctuary cities for failing to enforce federal immigration laws. The second, named after Kate Steinle, who was shot and killed in 2015 by an illegal immigrant in the sanctuary city of San Francisco. It calls for tougher penalties for criminal illegal immigrants who are deported and try to re-enter the country. Now, both bills head to the Senate, where they face an uphill climb. Joining me now, Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General. Mr. Paxton, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning from Texas.
First of all, your response to the passage of these two bills.
Big for us. You know, this is a long time coming. Had this been passed several years ago, we wouldn't have lost Kate Steinle and others. So for me, it's a no-brainer. You're protecting our citizens. And in my opinion, no downside to passing these bills. It's merely upside for us.
All right, so the ball's in the Senate's court. What happens now? Do they survive the Senate?
You know, I never can predict what's going to happen in the Senate. I honestly can't figure out why any senator would vote against this. We're talking about illegals who have committed crimes or who are suspected of committing crimes, and to put them back out into the public without deporting them makes absolutely no sense.
I will tell you, many Democrats are against this legislation, calling it anti-immigrant, saying it would stoke fear. Mr. Paxton, Gerald Nadler, a Democrat from New York, called the measure callous and irrational. Others said it would target legal immigrants. So how are they going to address those concerns that there are some of?
You know, I actually don't understand those concerns. Again, you're talking about people who are here illegally, who are in detention for having committed crimes. In the Texas case, you know, we passed a sanctuary city bill that also dealt with people who are arrested or suspected of crimes. So you're talking about a criminal element. We're not talking about just the regular illegal. You're talking about somebody who has committed a crime. So I don't understand the concern, especially when these are potential risks for our citizens.
Well, in order to pass the Senate, they might have to address some of those concerns. Lou Correa, a Democrat from California, says, yes, we must keep out the bad hombres, using a term that President Trump has used in the past, but we must continue to welcome those who come to America to work hard and contribute. This is what they're up against, that sort of criticism.
Yeah, I think the narrative's wrong, though. I mean, this is clearly, again, we're talking about a criminal element. The narrative you often hear is that, you know, somehow this is going to affect law enforcement. They're not able to get information from those who provide that type of information. But like in our case, the bill protects those who have been victims of crime or who are witnesses to crime. So, you know, a lot of the narrative is false. It's not real. And I have not heard a legitimate concern from any Democrat in the Senate about why they're not voting for this bill.
All right. So the one cracks down on sanctuary cities, the other Kate's Law. So the fundamental question is, does the passage of these two bills, would it make America safer?
Oh, absolutely. I have no doubt. I mean, think about if this is in place and that the guy that killed Kate had not been allowed to come back in the country, or he had been put away in prison, which he should have been, he would have not committed that murder. And just the fact that this would also require, the second bill would require cooperation by cities in holding criminals in detention as they're being passed off to the feds. We already know several people have been harmed and killed because they were released and there was no cooperation with the feds. So there's no doubt that the past shows that people would have been protected. And so we know this will work in the future.
So if the bills don't survive the Senate, which the future is uncertain there, if they don't survive the Senate in their current form, does that put America's safety at risk?
I think it absolutely does. And I think, again, the past shows what the future will be. In Texas, over the last 6 years, our state police have tracked statistics on illegals. We've had over 220,000 arrests and about 600,000 crimes, including 1,200 homicides, 6,000 sexual assaults, 70,000 thefts and burglaries, 70,000 drug charges, and the list goes on. So we know that they're committing crimes. Therefore, we're trying in Texas to do our best to protect our citizens. We're hopeful that Congress will do the same.
Well, President Trump called the bill's passage good news in a tweet. He added, House just passed, hashtag Kate's Law. Hopefully, Senate will follow. Mr. Paxton, do you see this as a victory for the current administration?
Absolutely. You know, this is something that he's talked about, President Trump has talked about since his campaign. He specifically talked about these bills. I absolutely think it's a victory. And if you look at what he's accomplished with immigration over the last 5-6 months, I believe he's done more for this country on immigration than any other president we've had. So I'm grateful for what he's doing. I'm glad he's pushing forward on this issue.
Ken Paxton, very good to hear from you, Texas Attorney General. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, the mainstream media focused on the Trump campaign and allegations of collusion with the Russians. But what about the Democrats' possible ties to Moscow? Maria Bartiromo grilled former Clinton campaign chief John Podesta on that. The heated interview next as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures.
It's not a Russian company. They own less than 5%.
It's backed by the Kremlin.
I didn't own any shares in that company, Maria.
When you stepped off the board, you were given 75,000 shares from Joe Lee.
That is not true.